Hi, my name's James. I'm a musician and composer. My family in Leeds, we were not church tenders. As I got older, I would have even called myself an atheist. I had a very close relationship with my dad. When I was 20 years old, my dad suffered with depression. He was full of life, happy, and then this just came out of nowhere. That was very difficult to understand and process. A month goes by and I got a phone call from my mum saying, I just didn't want you to find out any other way, but your dad has taken his life. I didn't know what to do, with anything, my life, what was going forward. I had so many questions at that time. Why did my dad go? Why did he make that decision? Why did it happen to me? And I had a lot of questions about meaning, identity, what makes me who I am. My dad, in my eyes was a great father that left me with a lot of good values and made me who I am today. But where did those values that I say were good values, where did that come from? What if there is a creator? What if there is a reason why we're here? And that just pulled me out of this dark space. And it was I was on a mission to find truth. This is when I started coming across Christians, people in these groups or people I was watching online or books I was reading. When I would read scripture and then someone would explain it and would explain how to apply it to your life, it was I was fascinated by how it would just work. I ended up finding a church local to me. Where I really started to see God work in people was through going to this church and seeing the attitudes that people had, the genuine heart they had for me and care, but also the fact that the message I received that day was actually about the values we received and inherited and how they come ultimately from Jesus Christ. And I was how crazy is that I've just walked in on some random Sunday and the message I've received today is an answer to all these questions and everything I've been searching for. So at the end of that service, there was an altar call, a prayer, and I didn't put my hand up at first, but the pastor called again and said, there's someone out there who doesn't even really know what they're putting their hand up, but there's something in them. If you've experienced something today and you just want to know what that is, just raise your hand and say yes, and we'll say a prayer and your life is going to change. So I was okay, how can I say no to that? How can I say no to an offer like that? And I put up my hand, I said that prayer. So I was born again, saved. It was 9 months into that journey. And I was just God, I don't see a future in this music job. If this isn't from you and you want me to do something else, then just show me the way. And then 3 months later, this opportunity to go and assist a composer who works in film and TV came up. And that was to live in London. But then I didn't have a church. So my pastor calls me and he says, I understand, but you can't just settle. You've got to find somewhere where the spirit is alive, where, you're not just going with the motions, because ultimately you are just going to fall back. That's not going to work. That's not going to sustain you. So then another friend calls me and goes, James, I just went to this night at CRC Manchester and they have churches in London. I went again, and it was it was the same thing. I was greeted on the door. People were so happy to see me there, wanted to know why I was there, wanted to make me feel welcome at home. And then, again, the same thing happened. I went into the sermon and Pastor Tabu was preaching a message. He said, if you were to die today and you were to stand in front of God, would you hear, good and faithful servant, or I never knew you? That just filled me with conviction because I knew that where I was before I moved to London and where I was right there in that moment, I had drifted. I had fallen back into old ways and I needed to make a change that day because I never wanted to hear that. I wanted to hear good and faithful servant. I was well, the only way that's going to happen is if I make a decision today. So I went up to the front that day, I recommitted my life and just started my walk again in CRC, in a home cell, under discipleship. I always think about that fact that my friend called me to tell me about that night in Manchester, because of the work that they've done there and because of how faithful they've been and how they've been obedient to God. The ripple effect of that was someone coming and speaking to me, inviting me to CRC London, and then all the things that have happened in my life since, all the things I've been able to do for God, for the church, through serving, through outreaching, through bringing people to know Jesus, has all been because of them being obedient where they have and where God has placed them. What I'm thankful for in CRC is that we worship God with holy reverence and awe in everything that we do. And I can't explain how grateful I am to be around people that do that every single day.
If you've been moved by this testimony or would like to support CRC in their mission to impact the UK and Europe with the gospel, you can easily contribute by scanning the QR code provided or by visiting our website. Your partnership with CRC is invaluable in spreading the message of hope and faith. Thank you for supporting this worthy cause. If you've watched this and you find yourself in need of support in a specific area, or you would like to know about Jesus Christ, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by sending us an email at info@crclondon.com, or you can visit our website to find out more information. We're here to help you in your journey.